What's up YouTube? Welcome to yet another update in the tier list. This time around, for the very first time, we're meeting live on stream to talk about what is good, what is bad, and how each class compares with each another. Today we're gonna discuss a lot of things, and most importantly, we will find out, or I guess have a preliminary vision of how each spec is currently performing, not only output-wise, but also playstyle, fun, mobility, some new utility, reworks, and whatever they have done to the classes, we're gonna explore today. Huge disclaimer, what we are doing today is not a final thing. This will evolve every single Sunday, will be updated live on stream, because there are a lot more tunings to come. Remember, the patch is yet unknown, the date is yet unknown. We speculate it's gonna be likely around the end of February. However, that is not confirmed. So there's gonna be at least 4 or 5 more weeks of tuning. So if your spec is bad right now, it doesn't mean it's gonna stay bad. There's a chance that it will get buffed or unnerved. Vice versa, if your spec is OP, there's a chance to get hammered. So don't be too optimistic or pessimistic, rather enjoy the content. And if you guys have anything else that you have as a feedback, I am more than welcome to read it on the comments down below. Anyway, that being said, let's begin with the tiers. I will explain each tier before I start the rankings. S tier for me is something that I consider most likely a probable meta. A tier means specs that are really good but lack something to be considered S tier. And if your spec is placed anything down the B tier, let's just say things not looking good for you, or they might need some reinforcement coming from Blizzard getting some direct buffs. Now, I guess you're better on B tier than C tier. Now, there's 2 tiers that I've added so far. The last tier is if your set is completely bugged out, that means it's unable to be tested, or your set doesn't work at all. So that's gonna be something that I haven't decided yet what to do. Hence why I decided, okay, you know what, I'll wait for Blizzard to fix them next week so I can evaluate them better and rank them. And this tier right here is pretty much specs that I'm not confident myself of where they belong in the rankings, and I might need another week or so, you know, to get pretty much used to it. The worst DPS currently on a C tier is gonna be Havoc DH. Unfortunately, Havoc DH, in my opinion, is the worst performing damage output, I guess numbers only DPS out there. Now, when it comes down to utility, of course, utility has never been a question, and defensiveness as well. They're fine there. The problem is your output currently compared to other specs is on a lower side. Now, your current damage on cooldowns, it's fine. It's comparable. It's great. I mean, like, great is a very stretch, but let's say it's decent. But as soon as you have no cooldowns and you have only minors left, your damage is comparable to tanks. You are better in rate than you are in Mythic Plus. That makes you more incentivized to keep playing Havoc, but further tuning must be present for the spec to be placed higher. I would really love to see that. So far, unfortunately, we have seen very limited changes done to Havoc. Therefore, the power spike of the spec is non-existent. In my opinion, the worst tank so far across all of them has to be Guardian Druid. Now, even though Guardian Druid has received some quality of life changes to the general tree, the current durability of the spec is really poor. I mean, when I say really poor, like you struggle to live, especially on like hard pools where there's like tank buster presence or like more mobs around. Magic durability is also a present issue. Now, damage wise, I wouldn't say Bear is completely bad, but you know, there's specs that do much better than you. Utility wise, nothing has changed there. I guess there is some cool new talents that could provide the bond with extra healing on your target, but that's pretty much about it. One thing I would love to see that is perhaps a threat generation buffs, or in general, I guess, more incentivized damage amps so you do not have a threat issues. And last but not least, race change has been great, which means you don't have to think about Mo anymore on single target. You can just pretty much press, you know, compress race at all times, or at least most of the times. So if I see more durability changes done to Guardian, then I will place it higher. But I think for now speaking, C tier is something that I believe heavily that they are into. In my opinion, the second to last DPS is going to be Fury Warrior. Now, Fury Warrior, extremely disappointed of how the spec is playing right now. Extremely. Even though the set is something that I actually enjoy playing because it allows you to have a flexibility in gameplay, like potentially change your rotation a little bit depending on what procs, it just feels like outside of minor cooldowns, even though your cooldowns are between 45 and like 55 seconds cooldown, you just feel like trash. Like literally, I haven't seen a lower damage outside of cooldowns than Warrior. It's really disappointing. Other than this, I would say you're a lot more focused or better in raiding than you are in Mythic Plus, which is something that's really weird to me because it always been like Fury at least somewhat decent in Mythic Plus, but yeah, currently across all the DPS specs, you are quite the bottom. I would love to see positive adjustments for the spec done in the near future, perhaps some of the issues that I addressed to be fixed. Also, on top of this, utility-wise, Warrior is pretty much the worst. All of them, across all of them, you know. I know this is something that a lot of people hate it when I say it, but I believe the Warrior utility is the worst in the game. There is nothing that is worse than Warrior utility. You can make an argument about Battle Shout. Now, Battle Shout could make you a lot more desirable if melees become to be a dominant spec, and if Prot Warrior is bad, then only then Arms and Fury can have a bigger incentive to get in. But if you don't count the Battle Shout, which can only benefit from physical damage dealers, which right now, as you guys can see later on, most of them are not. I'm not gonna spoil, but you know, there doesn't seem to be that many melees ranked in a higher levels of the tier list. Sub Rogue unfortunately have a bug tier set, which pretty much you can't really test or rank a class that doesn't really have the new working tier set. You can't, you know. Even though, in my opinion, the set is really good because not only it gives you damage on demand whenever you want to have it, but it also offers for some heavy burst oriented gameplay coming on sub. Now, when it comes down to general changes to Sub Rogue, there hasn't been any or not at all, which is a little bit disappointing because Rogue in general hasn't really seen a lot on PTR Season 2. Probably something to be adjusted in the near future. Perhaps they're saving some of the bigger changes down the line, perhaps. But it plays pretty much like it was playing from last season. No big changes done to all Rogue specs. Another tier set you guys mentioned, you guys are correct. Affliction Lock also has a tier set that doesn't work. Now, Affliction Lock has its own issues that are still present nowadays. Then they were present in beta, they were present in alpha, they were present in season 1, the whole one, and are still currently present in season 2 PTR. Now, I've spoken about it publicly, but even though the set doesn't work, I really like the idea of the set. It makes you unstable Affliction do more damage, also spreads to more targets, which pretty much can enforce like a different playstyles or talent choices based on unstable Affliction, which can make you actually do a lot more consistent damage. Now, the main issue that I'm having, Veiltain. Veiltain is the most frustrating shit that I had to deal with. 30 seconds cooldown, applies agony to like many targets. I believe it's 8 targets a cap. The question is, yes, you can likely extend the current agony stacks if you have Dark Glare extending your agony with another spell. However, if you don't have 2 charges of Veiltain, you feel bad. It's just really bad. Now they can do something to that. They can either make 2 charges Veiltain or make Veiltain a lower cooldown. Even if it's like a 20 seconds cooldown, that might save you some headaches, but it's still not gonna fix the issue because the moment your tank pulls more targets on top of the main target, like chain pulls, and you don't have Veiltain, you're fucked. You're just fucked. You have to manually apply agony to like 5, 6, 7 targets, which gives you 6 globals, and at the same time, you are already capping on shards because you don't spam enough Malefic Ruptures. So it's really something that I would love them to fix in the near future, although everything else for me, I love the playstyle. Good prior damage, good burst damage, good sustain damage, 1 minute cooldown short ones, 2 minute big ones. I like the spec. The problem is, there's fundamental issues that prevents me from enjoying the full potential of the spec. And I believe if they decide to fix this, Affli will be in a much better space. Until then, doesn't look promising. I wouldn't recommend. So the only spec that I have here as well on top of Sub and Affliction Lock is actually Assassination Rogue. The set itself doesn't work remotely. Well, I guess it does work to some extent, but the rupture takes removing the stacks instead of only rupture cast itself is likely the biggest joke I've seen so far. Actually, on top of Rogue receiving no changes in a following Season 2 PTR, mostly all of the specs of Rogues are bugged as well. So this makes me believe they either haven't tested Rogue enough, or in general, it just feels lackluster from everywhere. Changes itself, same rotation, tier sets bugged. Probably the like, you know, the worst outcome Rogues can expect from, you know. But anyway, speaking back to Asa, nothing really significant has changed for the spec. Quite honestly, rotation feels quite the same as it was in Season 1. Now, the tier set itself, as I said, doesn't work as intended, so I haven't really evaluated the spec as much. Neither did I test it extensively. Which I'm hoping next week to be able to do so once they resolve the issues that they have currently. In terms of utility, everything stays exactly the same. So is durability, mobility, nothing really has changed there. So you can expect pretty much the same performance as they were having last season, except that the set now is much worse than before, and it also doesn't work. So the performance itself might go lower because of the set not even being that good. You know, the power spike is bad, and it's also the set is bad, and it doesn't work in general. So, you know, all of this combined together will definitely have an influence, negative influence, on the ranking of the Asa Rogue. BM Hunter. Surprise! I know. Let me explain why BM Hunter. Now, even though BM Hunter has received a lot of positive changes, including some talent reworks, BM Hunter inability to compete with damage, especially burst damage, is a huge problem in like low to mid level keys. What I mean by this is it takes a while until your spec actually ramps up and does damage. Now, when mobs live longer, of course you do a lot better, but the general output of the spec is very disappointing. Now, during big bursts, let's say every 2 minutes, and whenever you pull big, of course, your damage is great. You do great damage. Your single target has been improving and is better, in my opinion, in Mythic Plus than before. But generally speaking, your sustained damage is a bit on the lower end. I would really love to see some other adjustments on that spec itself. If I were playing like low level keys, I would probably put it in C tier. If I'm playing high keys, there's a possibility of the spec jumping to like upper B tier, even lower A tier, depending on the group comp you're playing. But for now speaking, I would say you are around the B tier performance. Utility, no changes there at all. Same thing goes for survivability and mobility as well. There hasn't been any changes, but again, everybody knows BM Hunter is the most mobile range spec in the game, so you can do your whole rotation while moving or dodging mechanics or doing whatever you want to do. So that's already a big plus for the spec. Windwalker Monk coming next on a B tier list. Unfortunately for well, I guess fortunately, because Monk has been bad season 1. So now they've got plenty of changes. So Spinning Crane got beefed up by a big amount, although it's still gonna be a little bit less of an output compared to Fist of Fury based on the performance of the testing, and also the tier set itself that boosts Fist of Fury damage even more. It seems like the mastery scaling itself, the increasement of the mastery value, has positive impact on the Windwalker damage output, which is obviously a welcoming change. The AoE output, in my opinion, is the biggest problem. Now, single target, I don't have issues with the spec at all, not at all. But it just seems like the AoE output right now, especially off cooldowns, is a lackluster. Now, what would they do to change this? Perhaps buff to the Spinning Crane Kick, perhaps make Dance of Chi maybe like proc more often or some shit. Anything will be welcoming to the spec itself, but I still believe the single target is actually a strength for them. Unironically, I think single target will be a strength to them, because keep in mind, the raid build and Mythic Plus build now will have very little difference in talent customization, which means whatever you were doing for raiding, there's a high chance that you might end up playing something similar for Mythic Plus. So yeah, that's about BM. Also, sorry, Windwalker. Keep in mind that Windwalker haze scaling got fixed in season 1. Mastery scaling has improved this season, so they're slowly but surely preparing Windwalker Monk for late season, which I believe with better stats and more tuning, the spec might actually become A tier. Not even kidding. it's quite fun to play, and all honesty, it will probably end up being again mediocre if they don't change the AoE output, especially off cooldowns. It feels like a little bit on the lower end. But then again, 1 month and a half until season comes out, there's a chance for the spec to like jump rankings, so don't feel completely bad. Okay, Feral Druid Force set got insanely buffed out, which kind of makes me believe that the spec itself will be performing better than what I have evaluated before. Now, again, moving back to the performance issues on Feral Druid, I don't think they were necessarily bad pickup in season 1. It's just that the output itself appeared to be mediocre, and most people don't care about that. Most people care about what looks to be insanely broken meta, you know? So, again, similar situation this season. The output itself is, you know, if I have to describe it in one word, it would be mid. But there's a possibility now after the changes that they will be better than what I have anticipated. Now, again, remember, utility of Druid is insane. Balanced Druid and Feral Druid share the same utility so far, except for the beam of Balanced Druid. That's not the case for Feral. But Feral is more tanky than Balanced because they have Survival Instincts and Barskin. Okay, so that's double defensive on top of a bear. So if they beef up the Feral damage even more, there's a chance to see Feral more often on keys above. Now keep in mind, Balance currently is looking to be insane, so the chance of that happening is slim. Not very high, put it this way. But anyway, I will evaluate the spec later on, perhaps next week, and I'll be ready with more adequate rankings. Now, what I was saying about Dila is that Feral has Barskin on top of Survival Instincts, which is something that Balance doesn't have. So Feral has double defensive on top of the bear on top. Outlaw Rogue appears to be the next in line on a tier list. Unfortunately for them, they still have the same issues as they were having last season. Target cap, lack of burst damage. Those two together doesn't really sync up. Unfortunately, that's still the case. Now, keep in mind that the Outlaw set is really good in my opinion, although it doesn't really work fully as what it was intended. I think the general idea of the spec of the tier set is actually really good. I think that's gonna likely beef up the damage even more. And if I gotta be honest, on a high level keys when mobs actually live longer, in my opinion, they will still do fine. So if you're playing high keys as Outlaw on a dungeon where you don't necessarily play big pulls, let's say the Rookery Mythic Plus, where there's like, you know, 4 or 5 mobs at the same time, they live long enough, I think Outlaw actually has a decent chance to be, you know, a good spec. I know it's hard to believe, but there's a chance for the spec to be good if you don't play big, and if they live long enough for you to utilize your back-to-back, you know, I mean, it's hard to say cooldowns, but like, you know, damage abilities. That's about Outlaw. Again, the durability hasn't changed, the utility hasn't changed for Outlaw. That's pretty much it. Also, there's been no changes for Outlaw at all, like 0. That's really concerning because I think Outlaw deserves some changes. But yeah. Anyway, Shadow Priest. Shadow Priest, unfortunately, is going down to the B tier. I am extremely unhappy with how the spec plays out. And I'm going to tell you why exactly. First of all, Shadow Priest wasn't really getting any changes from Season 1 to Season 2. 0 so far in PTR, which is really disappointing. The second thing, the output itself on Shadow Priest, while playing high level keys, is actually quite good. But on low level keys, when things die too quick, your Void Form feels like it's complete waste. If your Void Form cannot be fully extended or used in cooldowns, and the pack dies halfway through, or even like 70% through, why would you even play this shit? Now, Shadow Crush is also a second issue that is the biggest issue so far. Not only you have only one stack of Shadow Crush, it's also a capped Shadow Crush, which means if you miss Shadow Crush, or if you don't have Shadow Crush beginning of the pack, you're fucked. You're gonna do 0 damage. You're gonna do like worse than a tank. So there's several solutions that I offer. First solution, Shadow Crush to have 2 stacks. Second solution, make Shadow Crush has no cooldown, but make it do pretty much no damage and no insanity generation. Third option is to not play, is to completely change the design of the spec and perhaps include something else, which I don't think that'll even be considered. But Shadow Crush currently is, in my opinion, rather problematic. Now to summarize, on a high level keys, when you play with a pre-mate and let's say you pull relatively decent sized pools, let's say between 6 and 9 to 10 mobs, I believe Shadow Priest is gonna do really good, especially when mobs live long enough for you to use your whole burst, because your whole burst, especially when you play with a void form, is very long. Now when I say very long, I have gotten up to 1 minute uptime on my void form. 1 minute uptime. That is insane. I have never seen that to any DPS so far, to have 1 minute major cooldown rolling through. So that's really busted. Single target from all been testing so far on Shadow Priest, actually pretty nutty on Mythic Plus. So it's really good. It's really good in my opinion. But that's about it. That's like the big pluses. The rest of the minuses, when you compile together, it's just really big. So yeah, I think B tier is fine. High level keys, maybe A tier in some cases, maybe. But most of the time, if I consider you are like a casual player doing your 10s and 11s and 12s, B. Disc Priest, I'm putting in unsure, need more testing, simply because it was severely changed to the point where your gameplay itself is now different than before. First of all, they removed Rupture, which is not another very strong major cooldown. However, they made it easier to acquire other cooldowns. For example, Ultimate Penance, right? They could perhaps go and take that one, perhaps, right? They also changed the way that Void your pet works. So you get CDR right now coming from Penance, and coming from you get to proc it from Mind Blast and Penance, but like the smite in general itself, the CDR coming from it is rather removed, which means your playstyle now will require you to like cast a lot more often Penance and Mind Blast, or at least on cooldown, to get the most CDR out of it. Short case, the difference between this last season, this season, is change in core rotation, or like rather priorities right now, and also change of how you plan your cooldowns ahead, especially when they have removed the Rupture. So all of this together, I think there's a very strong incentive for this to be still one of the S tier specs. I'm just not 100% confident that it will be this case. Now the output itself, like healing output and damage output, from all I've seen so far, is great. If I discount PI, they're still great. The problem is they're currently, at least for me, a gray zone of testing, because I am not confident that they will be still S tier after those changes. Because, you know, the smite gameplay that gave you pets so often offered a lot of burst healing every couple of seconds, which again made some healing checks really easy for you. So that's all I can say about for now for this priest. Now again, utility itself, apart from Rupture, hasn't really changed, and the same thing goes for like defensive part, hasn't really changed there too. I guess time is gonna tell, or further testing is gonna tell, if that will be the case moving forward. Arms Warrior. Actually, I have something good to say about them. The tier set itself, even though it's very minor DPS gain for them, unfortunately, the rotation difference is... The rotation itself has some different nodes across it. For example, it doesn't really offer you to like mindlessly spam overpower itself, right? Or sorry, execute itself. So now you have like overpower gameplay where you have to think about, hey, do you wanna cast that one, or do you wanna, for example, shift my rotation back to execute? Like you have some like decision making to do when it comes down to arms. But honestly, the damage output itself compared to all the DPS specs, in my opinion, is not entirely bad. Now there's several cases where, for example, the burst damage coming from Arms Warrior would do really good. You know, sustained damage is something that I have noticed or experienced myself that is not really there, which is, in my opinion, the biggest issue so far. Sustained damage must be increased, or perhaps further evaluated and buffed there so it can match the other specs power. Now, you are better in raiding than you are in Mythic Plus, so even if you are B tier here, you're probably going to end up being at least A tier for raiding. So far, at least, I mean, out of our testing, it appeared to be really good. Now, one more thing I have to say about arms. Both Arms and Fury has received 10% stamina, which makes them a little bit more durable against, you know, all kind of damage, which is again a good thing for you. But utility remains unchanged, which pretty much means you only have damage for the group and that's about it. I guess Battle Shout and some minor utility like Shockwave, for example, Stormbolt, for example, etc. Which again, it could be complementary, but all in all, pretty bad compared to all specs. That's about arms. Damage is kind of mid, so that's why mid tier, you know. I think if you're playing low level keys, I would probably probably rank up arms around like bottom of 8 tier. So it's really something that I would love to show. There's actually a really good quote. Let me just show you what the main theory crafter of Arms Warrior and Fury said about arms. Hold on, let me show you guys what he said. So pretty much, I'm gonna cite something, okay? So about Arms Warrior, he said, he's saying that there's been some rotational changes done to arms. Most importantly, no longer spamming execute for Colossus Might stacks, which is actually the biggest thing so far. You don't have to be mindlessly spamming that for like Colossus Might stacks, which is again a good thing. Yeah. Also, the set itself, it's rather mid in terms of power, which is again not really good thing. Fine. Now, Survival Hunter, although it has received some positive adjustments coming to Season 2 PTR, again, the damage output itself is really not that impressive. Now, again, just like Arms Warrior, mid performance coming from Survival Hunter, short offensive cooldowns, but the output itself doesn't really match the rest of the specs placed on A or S tier. The only way for the spec to climb higher is further buffs on the spec. That's short and sweet. There's nothing else to be said here. Also, the set itself is really bad for survival. That's also one thing. I feel like the set either makes you or breaks you. And in a case of survival and arms, it doesn't really shine to be that good. Again, utility unchanged, mobility unchanged, defensive part unchanged. It's, you know, same as before. But the set itself is definitely a poor design, I would say. One of the specs that I have placed in unsure need mode testing is actually a tank spec. That's going to be a Prot Paladin. Now, Prot Paladin originally, in my opinion, was doing really poorly after the nerfs coming from Season 1 to Season 2. Not only they decreased the rage generation, but they also decreased the damage itself. Sorry, Prot Warrior, not Prot, sorry. Prot Warrior. My bad. Prot Warrior, not Prot Paladin. Completely confused them. Apologies. So the only reason why I'm placing the spec here is because they got buffed 3 days ago with better damage and better rage gen, which again, better rage gen means better threat, and I guess better durability will have more rage, right? And more damage on top of it too. So now I am not sure whether they will be placed on a B tier or A tier. Definitely not S tier, but definitely not C tier. It's gonna be either A or B. I'm just not confident enough to place them so far. I guess further time of testing needs to be present, you know, for me to evaluate them. But so far, I would say I was completely doomer on the Prot Warrior, complete doomer. After the changes, I became a believer. Devastation Evoker going next. Now, there are several things I want to say about Dev Evoker. First and foremost, their performance has improved significantly if you are playing Flame Shaper. Hands down, now you can play Flame Shaper and Scale Commander in Mythic Plus, although it appears that Scale Commander is still to be slightly better in my opinion than Mythic Plus. Okay. Second thing, sustained damage, in my opinion, is an issue. Current issue of Dev Evoker, sustained damage. Off cooldowns, it feels a little bit on lower end. Okay. I would love them to adjust that one. During cooldowns, amazing. Good front load burst, great spec fluidity, rotation feels fine too. On a single target, a bit boring to play, but other than that, just fine. Offensive range issue 25 yard is a little bit problematic in some bosses in Mythic Plus, but overall, it shouldn't be a big deal for you. Last but not least, utility. Amazing utility. Amazing, but it's shared with Oak Evoker, and if Oak Evoker remains meta, you can say goodbye to your spec. Because ain't no way that's happening. You play double Evoker. Unfortunately. Maybe for like low level keys, Dev Evoker might be the preferred choice over Oak. But the moment you play high level keys like plus 12s and above, Oak Evoker becomes the default choice. I repeat, default choice. Arcane Mage unironically has one of the best set in the game, which likely will result in a little bit of a nerf here and there, you know? I hope so, at least. Overall performance actually has improved since Season 1. I believe that they have now much better consistent damage, which means every time you have a touch of Magi, you actually feels like you do damage. Before, it was like every measure cooldown you were doing insane spikes, and then you were like tank DPS, which again, unironically felt bad. Now, they're shifting some of the power to touch of Magi, which means your consistent damage, short damage, would feel great, like the mini burns would feel better. Single target remains good. The overall output remains still kind of mediocre, especially when you play like a large pools. Let's say you combine 2 or 3 packs together. It still feels kind of bad, but your prior damage has become better, and your damage during cooldowns, especially when you don't play big enough packs, it's actually beautiful. Beautiful. Beautiful, okay? So that's about Arcane so far. Holy Priest I've put in a bit here so far. I think the general idea of the spec has been great. I mean, they're trying at least to change the how the spec plays out. The current output itself in general feels kind of okay, like mid performance so far, both healing and damage wise. Utility remains pretty much unchanged, and I feel the fact that Disc Priest might still become dominant spec, I guess might, will put Holy Priest slightly down in my opinion. Overall, Reactive spec one of the easiest to play, very good beginner friendly spec, and it's still gonna do fine if you do like your average keys, but for high level keys, it is not my preferred choice. Yeah, everything remains the same, toolkit is the same, nothing has changed. Again, low mobility, lack of mob control is also an issue, as well as Disc Priest. So that's, you know, something to like add on top of this. Next in line on a bit here, I have pulled Blood Decay on a bit here so far, even though Blood Decay hasn't seen a lot of changes in my opinion. The tier set itself is at the start I thought it's really bad, but then there's a 4-set interaction can give you actually a quite juicy death strikes in AoE, which can give you some damage amps. The RNG itself from the 2-set is really bad. I agree with that. That's the case for like almost every tank. The 2-set is just really bad for the RNG shit. So current output on Blood Decay, in my opinion, appears to be rather mid so far. In my opinion, one idea better than Bear. Utility itself hasn't really changed so far. For Blood Decay, so it remains the same. Toolkit remains the same. Playstyle remains largely unchanged. So that's about bit here. Brewmaster is a spec that I'm actually not entirely sure of where I like to be placed at. The rotation itself hasn't changed a single bit since Season 1, Season 2. There's been barely no changes at all for Brewmaster, which is kind of disappointing, and the general problems remain the same. Durability wise is an issue, magical damage taken is an issue, in general self-sustain is a massive issue. Yes, they do damage, yes they are insane in damage department, but they take a shit ton of damage. So you take some, you give some. I guess I would love to see some adjustments to Brewmaster. Currently there are none. I don't know what to say else about Brewmaster. I guess utility unchanged, mobility unchanged, things are unchanged. No changes, nothing, zero, nada for them. So yeah, Brewmaster is cooked as fuck. That is the TLDR. I hopefully that they give them something. Preservation Evoker, I have placed them in an unsure, needs more testing. Now, even though I don't like the tier set for Pres Evoker, the actual healing capabilities are really good. So the healing output is great, damage output is kind of mid. The usual rotation wise, especially like rotation playing around Pres Evoker, remains pretty much unchanged, which means you might not be able to make the most out of the spec whenever you play in a puck scenarios, because people are unaware of how important positioning is for Pres Evoker, which again, I told you times and times again since last season when people were like so hyped about Pres Evoker. If you guys remember, a lot of people were like, oh, Pres Evoker is gonna be S tier, yada yada yada. Again, Pres Evoker with the current way it plays out, unless they do insane damage or insane healing, they ain't gonna be that shit, you know. Currently, it appears neither of them. Also, the fact that Orc Evoker is still present and is still likely gonna end up like S tier Place Evoker has even less incentive to be picked up. I think it's gonna end up around B tier, but I'm not either B or A. I'm not 100% confident, hence why I haven't placed him anywhere. Brewmaster, same shit. I think it's gonna end up in a B tier because it's better than Brew, but I'm not confident yet, hence why I am not placing them in a B tier. That was the TLDR so far. Hunter going to the bottom of A tier / top of B tier. Now, the several things I would like to say about Hunter. Okay. First thing first, I absolutely love the playstyle of Dark Ranger. Even though Dark Ranger is not the strongest in Mythic Plus spec, still Sentinel is better. The playstyle remains mostly unchanged for, like, you know, Sentinel. Again, trick shot, spender, trick shot, spender. Explosive shot is more beefed up right now. Sustained damage has improved a little bit. Burst damage is crazy good, just like always. Most importantly, you don't have to play around your pet anymore. Fuck that. Thank God. Your pet is no longer needed. You can use your Bloodlust without having to summon pet. You can use all the utilities as well without having to summon your pet, which is actually great shit. I love that stuff, by the way. Defensive part largely unchanged. Mobility largely unchanged. Utility largely unchanged. Everything else, as you remember, of Hunter remains pretty much same old, except for the part where you have no pet anymore. So it becomes easier. Okay, you can also keep your pets, of course, but you don't have to summon them anymore because they changed the way it plays out. Now I have an ego around you. So yeah, I think overall output, if they were to be beefed up more in terms of like more damage during their off measure cooldowns, then I can place them higher or even better single target. I think for now A tier is rather complementary. Definitely A tier on low level keys, A tier or higher B on like mid to high level keys. Now Red Paladin has seen its fair share of changes. Of course, like every single spec in the game, that's the case for them as well. Now, keep in mind that rotation remains largely unchanged, even though their power spike remains similar to what they were in Season 1. Their sustained damage is going to remain good because you have 30 seconds minor cooldowns, 1 minute major cooldowns, very easy spec to play, great burst front load damage, great single target as well, but your damage output is nowhere near S tier. It's good spec, but not S tier spec, which pretty much makes me believe that you can still play it and do high level keys. It's just not going to be highly desired. You are tanky, good utility, mobility has been improving, but damage department, it doesn't really look like S tier. So that's about it, you know. So there's like several builds where you can actually play better single target builds, even if you don't believe Riser. But if you play Executioner Sentence and the talent that is like on the very bottom left capstone, the talent above that, you actually have better single target than what you had before. No, I'm serious. I can show you later. I can literally show you later. Like your ST is not terrible. Like it's better than half of the classes placed below them, you know. The AoE department is what makes them shine, especially once you get those juicy procs, you know, the hammer procs. Then it becomes real fucking juiced up. But every 30 seconds cooldowns, I mean, bro, I am taking that, you know. It's fine. Yeah. Of course you run Execution AoE, but like a lot of people have been avoiding Execution Sentence. What I'm saying, it's actually great talent because it gives you better prio, better single target. So yeah. Some people, I tried the hammer of like what do you call this new talent? Hammer of divine of hammer. What do you call this new talent? That's like to the right. It's every 1 minute measure cooldown. I already forgot about it. I can't remember every single talent and spec to all you know. Divine hammer, that's the one. Yeah. So I tried divine hammer to make it work. I tried it extensively and it's just really bad on single target, just really bad. Now on the AoE appears to be better, especially with a tier set, because you get so many resets on your spenders, but it just feels like pretty lackluster on single target, which again, I was kind of expecting, to be honest with you. yeah, Red Power is definitely fine, of course. Unholy Death Knight is next in line to the A tier. Again, Unholy actually unironically gets several new builds to play, especially if you want to play San Lin now or Rider. Output is crazy good, especially in burst situations where there's like a lot of mobs. And those mobs live longer. If they don't live long enough, it's really, really, really bad for you. As long as they live long enough, you're going to do fine. Hence why I believe on the high level keys, you're going to perform much better than low level keys. Sustained damage has been improving in my opinion. Burst damage remains similarly good. Single target remains okay, nothing crazy. I guess the AoE department really carries you forward. Utility largely unchanged. Defensive part, even though you got nerfed recently, the past couple of patches, the past patch, sorry, you still remain, in my opinion, one of the tankiest specs in the world so far. So that's about Unholy. Unholy tier 4 is not working, meaning you are missing 60% epidemic damage, and all AoE packs with it not working. Are you confirmed that the 4 set doesn't work as intended? I mean, again, there's a lot of specs that the set itself has bugs, or if not bugs, then at least not working to the full extent. But if you're saying that your 4 piece doesn't work at all, like zero, like nothing works, then that's actually a big problem. Frost Decay next in line, just like Unholy. I had a Frost Decay much lower than they are right now. But after the most recent changes done to Frost Decay, I believe Frost Decay now is in a better shape than they were 3 days ago. Positive adjustments for them. Originally, the set was really bad. After some adjustments, I believe now it's in a better space. Again, you can expect from Frost Decay, same old burst, great sustained damage during burst as well, especially proud damage. Single target, a little bit on lower end from what I have experienced so far, but not entirely bad. Utility, it remains largely unchanged so far as well, which is a good thing for you. Durability wise, although you got nerfed last patch, still remains one of the strongest across all levels. That's all about Frost Decay. I think it's still going to become a great pickup. Not as dominant as you were in Season 1, but yeah. My favorite spec in the game, chat, Eli Shaman, comes next in line at 8 here. Absolutely bangers of spec. Now, even though your rotation has pretty much largely remains unchanged, the builds that you're playing right now are a lot different than they were in Season 1. More specifically, you've changed the fact that you don't have P-Wave anymore, an NMT and a short window of haste, but now you have a pet build, which arguably could be a much better consistent damage throughput in the long run. Speaking about that, currently Elemento has a severe bug, which means your ascendance from the DRE gets to be 15 seconds instead of 6, which inflates your damage big time. That being said, I try to account that to be nerfed next week, so I think pretty good to say Elemento is likely around 8 tier once they get to change that one. Single target looking to be good. Not insane, just good. AoE is the area where you excel insanely high. Defensive part unchanged, utility unchanged, except for the AG. AG got removed, which is pretty big L. But overall, I would say you are probably looking like you are still at top of the A tier, even if you get to be changed from the DRE itself. So yeah. But then again, remember, the Elemental Shaman currently, as you play on PTR, is extremely OP because it has bugs which inflate your damage all the time, like DRE. If you guys don't know what DRE is deeply rooted elements, which is a talent that is supposed to give you 6 seconds of ascendance. Instead, it gives you 15. So that's pretty much to give you in perspective. Imagine if Fire Mage has a 10% chance to proc combustion for 15 seconds pretty much every couple of seconds, you know? So the DRE itself is what makes Elemental uber fucking broken right now. Once they fix that, Eli will be more in line. Now, that's why I've decided to put it at A tier. If I have to be honest, current performance around S tier, but because it's gonna get nerfed next week, I think A tier is more in line. For now, it's Restoration Shaman. dog shit. Okay, anyway, why is Resto Shaman C tier? First, foremost, there have been several talents that got removed from the toolkit. Ancestral Guidance being the primary one. Primordial Wave, also part of it. Mana Issues has never been that bad of a spec than Resto Shaman. Mana Issues is the worst that I've seen so far from any healer and is really concerning. Damage output, likely the lowest so far across all healers, because like the passive damage that you can do is relatively small based on the amount of healing you gotta do. Which pretty much means if you're focusing on healing, you can't really DPS. So unless they beef up the rain, or beef up your Riptide to do more healing, or anything else, Unleash Life for example to do even more, then it's really concerning so far. Hence why I've decided to put it in a C tier. In my opinion, probably they're preparing Restoration Shaman for the buffs, even though they got buffed 3 days ago. I still believe you are better in rate than you are M+. So, yeah. Restoration Druid on A tier. Now, let me explain why do I think they are currently A tier. Listen to me why. First of all, the change of mastery. Yeah, it's a little bit whack. They're trying to target mastery to make you not having to apply 10,000 bajillion Uber fucking hots to actually do healing. Now, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make you preemptive hotting not the case anymore and lower the skill barrier of the spec, which means not only they're trying to make the spec easier, but also trying to make it more adjustable to either become a full cat weaver or a full all weaver. Again, chicken to the damage or cat to the damage. They don't want you to do the hybrid shit. That's the first thing they want to do. Second thing, it seems like they're trying to strengthen their healing output and to be more focused around Mythic Plus. And although I don't like how your minor cooldowns are feeling on the Restoration Druid, I think overall output itself from a healing perspective is not really bad. The damage department needs some love for sure, but I think overall performance from the spec itself, especially when you have to include all the utility in mind and all the durability in mind, I think will be likely around A tier. Now, given the fact that I still believe Disc Priest and Mistweaver are better than you, you're probably fighting for the 3rd spot or 4th spot. That's what I'm currently thinking for like Restoration Druid. And to make things even spicier, and I know this is going to be even more delusional, I have placed Holy Paladin ahead of the Druid. I know this is really fucking cooked, but let me tell you something what I think, okay? I think Holy Paladin was real doomer last week, right? Probably around BOC tier, but the recent buffs to Holy Paladin, dude, I'm not even kidding. They have definitely cooked with that shit. First of all, your Holy Shocks are so beefy that when they slap your ass, it's probably gonna jiggle until like Christmas. Not even kidding, by the way. More damage, more healing, and again, remember, Divine Toast also is now gonna do more damage because of the buff of the Holy Shocks as well. You know, so generally speaking, they're trying to remove you casting like a pleb and be actually a Shockadin, which means like an instant cast back, and like, you know, do some healing and stuff. Overall damage remains kind of mid, but the healing performance have been increasing ever since the buffs went through. Defensive wise, they're pretty strong, have also an immunity, and it's one of the specs that actually have a very good mob control. Utility wise so far remains really good, but main issue, output. If the output gets to be higher, I'm pretty sure that this spec is gonna probably go to the higher A, even S. Depends on the output itself. And given the fact that you get a lot of CDR on the Divine Toll, it can become like 35 seconds, which means you can handle, just like the mini pets that Disc Priest was getting, pretty much anything, right? So every 35 seconds you get to do some definitely impactful healing, but not enough in my opinion to be put in S tier so far. Yeah, that's about Holy Paladin. Super cooked take. I know, chat. I know, but you know, what is a tier list without a cooks? That's my cook for today. Super cook. It's either cook or I'm cooked. I don't know. We'll see. Frost Mage goes next in line on the very top of the A tier. One of the highly anticipated rankings to be finalized with the Frost Mage, looking to be extremely good going forward in the second season of War Within. Again, they've changed a lot on Frostmage. I guess the most prominent change has been the Blizzard change, which means your Blizzard now is cooking big time damage, longer duration, and bigger radius. On top of this, Frostmage is now not gonna be brainless chimp spec that presses Ice Lance every second global, but you actually have to think about what to do next. Yeah, you get less orb resets, yeah, you're gonna play around Spike as well, but overall, I think it's gonna become more interactive because you don't have to be chimp and press Ice Lance every second global. But maybe they should actually buff Ice Lance because now it's just shit. I mean, not shit, but like, you know, mid, I guess. Durability remains one of the strongest so far. Utility largely unchanged. Defensive part, I guess durability just unchanged. That's about Frostmage. The output itself is really good. Good single attack as well. Good AoE. So overall W's. Demonology Warlock goes next in line. Now, there's several things I'd like to say about Demo. First and most important is this spec itself has received one of the best sets across all DPS specs, which is a massive damage gain, which also targets exactly the off cooldown periods where you actually needed to have more output. That's going to be a massive saver for you. Great burst damage, great sustain, decent single target, and most importantly, you are the same old reliable tanky spec in the game, have great utility, and mobility has been improving here and there. So I think overall, we're looking at a very strong performance coming from Demolock. In my opinion, much better than what they were in Season 1. Now, are they going to become as good to be an S tier? I think time can show, but given how dominant Destro Lock is at the moment, I don't think that will be the case for now. I don't think so. One more guy to the A tier. Vengeance Demon Hunter goes to the A tier. I know it's super cooked take, but hear me out. Vengeance durability has been improving steadily across Season 1 to Season 2. I know last week they were fully bugged out with their tier set actually activating all of the talents related to meta. They fixed that, but I still believe they are in a much better state than they were last season. Now again, your spikes last longer, which pretty much closes the window of you having nothing as a defensive and something, which makes you less kiting, which makes you do more damage, which makes other people do more damage as well. On top of this, we already know, in my opinion, Vengeance has very good offensive profile, has insane mob control, likely the best too, and it's one of the specs that syncs the best with a caster meta. So Vengeance has been improving, and I think A tier is definitely deserved for them. Do not let them tell you that they are bad. Balance Druid is currently cracked in Mythic Plus. The AoE damage is doing really good. Their single target might not appear bad, might not appear good, but it's definitely not bad. The AoE department is crazy good, especially whenever you play with a double CA. Juicy, okay? Durability has been improving very little. I guess during Bear now I get more DR, but it's still an issue. Utility itself has been great. Damage off cooldown has also been great, which is I'm very happy to have on. You can play both Keeper of the Groove and Elun's Chosen builds, which again I tested both and they appear quite good. I guess the biggest drawback is you are not really tanky. So yeah, that's I guess the biggest complaint so far. Maybe give them double bar skin or make them more tanky somehow. I don't know how, but this definitely a spec that needs further durability adjustments so far. Also, in regards to Balanced Druid crying that they're bad, remember last season before the season started, even in July, I told you guys Balanced Druid looks to be good. You guys laughed at it. You know, you guys listen to Teros who sound backs all the time, and look what happened. Balanced Druid appears to be the best, one of the best specs in season 1. Oopsie, boys. Sound back to the top. Woohoo! Mistweaver has been, in my opinion, the best healer so far in PTR. Insanely great healing output. I have never seen something like that, but most likely gonna get nerfed. Again, Jade Bond, insane. The Crackling Jade Lighting also absolutely fucking stunning way to do damage and healing at the same time. Also very good single target from it as well. It seems like they have finally cracked how Mistweaver should be played, and it's currently just insane, dude. Like, I've had playing Dark Flame Cleft, the third boss, which requires you a lot of HPS. The Mistweaver was doing 3 million HPS without Evoker throughout the whole fight. I mean, again, looking and talking about numbers only currently, Mistweaver has nobody that comes close to them so far. Damage department also one of the highest so far from all the healer specs. They still, in my opinion, don't have as strong of external defensive cooldowns like other specs. I guess Chikakun is the only one that I could think about, and the mini shields, but overall, because of the output they remain, in my eyes, S tier so far. The first healer spec to be S tier. After that, we're having a Prot Paladin. Now, Prot Paladin, I still believe will remain the best tank so far in PTR or in Season 2, unless changed otherwise. From purely defensive point of view, they have become better because of the tier set itself. Tempered in Battle has been nerfed, which means now there's like a bigger incentive to try to swap healer talents, but it's not going to be as broken as before, and you might require a bit more babysitting because of Tempered in Battle. In terms of utility, again, they remain everything that they had in Season 1, which means they will be fantastic there. In terms of like overall output itself, like just purely damage numbers, they're doing great. Not as good as Season 1 because the set itself provided you with more damage, but I still believe you are going to be good there too. So that's all about Paladin so far. Paladin will remain a dominant tank in Season 2. Now again, are you the most dominant? So far, yes, but I don't know if you're going to remain this way unless you get changed. Okay, now that's being said, moving forward, next in line. Now, this is going to be a Spicer take, but next in line, in my opinion, is going to be Enhanced Shaman. Enhanced Shaman, if you guys are not familiar, is still one of the most prominent DPS specs currently on PTR. Even though you got nerfed 3 days ago, you still remain to be extremely good in the current PTR settings. Yes, you are getting a new set next week, which we're going to be testing out, but with the current tier set, as of now speaking, you are still one of the highest damage output specs in the game. Not only you have great private damage, you have amazing AoE, most importantly, no relative cooldowns on you. You have damage all the time. Very short offensive cooldowns, which is, again, I'm very happy to say so. And on top of this, your string of target appears to be also quite competitive. In terms of durability, nothing has changed. There's still going to be times where you might require some babysitting, but overall, you are extremely strong in the current settings. Alright boys, 3 more DPS left. I will keep it straight to you. I won't delay it anymore. Next in line is going to be Fire Mage. Fire Mage probably received the biggest changes so far across all DPS specs. Again, if you guys remember, already Season 1 Fire Mage was the worst DPS so far. Climbing to Season 2, it appears to be extremely powerful spec. Not only because of you get one of the most broken sets in the game, but also because you got genuinely adjusted on regards to output, which means your AoE and single target will be absolutely incredible. I guess the AoE part more than single target. Not only, I mean, because you're also playing Flame Strike build, which again, I wasn't a big fan of the Flame Strike build, but seeing the numbers wise, I'm like, okay, dude, like, you know, shit fucking cracks. Also, another reason why I believe Fire Mage will remain to be a competitive spec is because Augmentation, which I'm gonna talk in a little bit, is quite powerful, even despite all the nerfs to the Oak Evoker. And again, Oak Evoker, Mage itself, combo is absolutely brilliant to play so far, hence why I'm very big believer that Fire Mage will remain S tier unless changed otherwise. And speaking to the S tier, we are talking about Augmentation Evoker and Destrolock all together to the S tier. I guess talking about Augmentation Evoker first. Augmentation Evoker, even though you even might no longer buff tanks and hitters, you still are, in my opinion, one of the best DPS choices for Season 2. Clutch of Mates makes your damage dealers do even more damage, like, which is incredible on top of it. You also have scales for your tank, which is extra armor, aka more physical damage mitigation. You have insane utility, which is likely the best in the game so far. You still have 3% more healing for your hitter, and again, you give burst to your team, to your DPS players, which is, you know, great thing. And most importantly, you have the defensive external capabilities to save your teammates. Whether it's gonna be grip for absorb, whether it's gonna be like Zephyr, doesn't matter. It's too insane. Also, second edition, Augmentation Evoker appears to have much higher uptime in Season 2 Ebon Might than what they had in Season 1, which means Ebon Might now is looking like getting across even 100% for like single target bosses, which is absolutely fucking incredible. That makes your damage dealers explode, you know, which is highly desired spec in my opinion. And going to the Destro Lock, likely one of the most, if not the most broken damage right now. Their AoE is nowhere near as close to any of the specs so far, especially during cooldowns. It appears that during off cooldowns, they're also doing amazing. The sustain damage is broken as fuck, and most important, they do insane single target. They're tanky as fuck, have great utility. Well, the utility is not really insane on locks itself, but it's like good to itself. But Destro Lock current output is unmatchable, which means they are likely gonna get adjusted or they remain meta if they don't. I think that's so far for me and my predictions. Now, chat, what do you guys think? Am I cooked or did I cook? What do you guys think? Am I cooked or did I cook?